Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suzanne Frey. I'm responsible for protecting the data our users entrust to Google, and specifically to G Suite. Now, our users include large, heavily regulated enterprise customers, say in financial services, small businesses that could become the next big thing, large national government agencies, small local agencies, education institutions, nonprofits, and the like, across multiple jurisdictions, regulatory requirements, and locales all over the world. Now, those users have trusted their most sensitive information to us. That's a responsibility that myself and the thousands of other individuals in Google Cloud take very seriously. I'm going to show a lot of words. I'm going to share a lot of things we do today, but frankly, at the end of the day, it's our actions that matter. And every single day, I'm proud to work alongside these thousands of Googlers who take the security and the trust our users have entrusted to us very, very seriously. So let's talk about that concept of trust. Why do we trust? Right? Actually, most people don't think about their fundamental internal trust algorithm very much. It's only when we're faced with something new that actually percolates to the surface. Fundamentally, our trust algorithms are formed from the moment we're born. We experience something new, we're vulnerable to something we don't know, whether it's food, or an experience or a location. And we either have a positive, negative, or neutral experience with each one of those endeavors. And over time, we learn to understand what we're going to trust. And we tend to trust the things we know because we've collected data on them as human beings, right? And we trust what we know until what we know we can no longer trust. So let's sort of back up and think about the concept of on-premise solutions, right? And on-premise, you're not really vulnerable or perceived not to be vulnerable because you're perceived to be in control. I think many people have heard the analogy that on-premise solutions are like sticking your money under the mattress, right? You're in control. You know where you put the money, you know how much money there is, and if you need to go get it, you know where to go. Now, trust here, right, is because you've gotten used to that, right? You've come accustomed to it, nothing bad has happened, and therefore you're comfortable with it. And I was thinking a little bit today during the keynote where customers were talking about going through the change management process of moving to cloud and how easy that was. And fundamentally, change management at its core is trust management. It's actually getting customers across that hoop of going through a new experience and landing in a positive and happy space. And that's something that I think that differentiates Google very, very well, that we are able to take customers on that journey expeditiously, safely, and at scale. Because any of you who have taken an organization through a massive change management exercise know that's not easy. And fundamentally, that's about trust. Now, I said under this circumstance, that put the money under the mattress, know where it is, and you tend to believe that that's the right way to operate until it no longer is, right? Because fundamentally, many companies today are realizing that scaling to meet the demands of security on an on-premise solution is becoming an exceptionally challenging game. And if adversaries happen to know you are running your operations on-premise, it is extremely easy for them to break those operations. So, changes like movement to the cloud, they're not new, right? Over time, customers went from storing their money under the mattress to actually putting, or I would say individuals, to actually putting their money in a bank, right? Something as important as one's financial assets, actually transferring that trust to someone else to manage. That happened over time. Banks made improvements. And now many people would say you're absolutely silly to put your money under the mattress. Same thing with airlines. Many companies didn't want to use airlines, or they ran their own until they realized that the safety and security is best entrusted to someone who does that as their business. Electricity. Do you even think twice about the fact that your electricity is probably provided by a third party? Kudos to all of you that are doing solar and going green, but for the most part, if your company didn't have electricity, right, you wouldn't be running. Yet, people don't think about that from a trust perspective very much anymore until there's a power outage, and then obviously we all think about it a lot. These are not new trends. This is where we are with the cloud today. Right? We're at that precipice of sort of going from the early adopter phase, the late adopters realizing that those who do cloud, do security, do fundamentally the full stack of operations around security and privacy better than individual on-premise operators can possibly do today. So, I don't know if somebody wants to shout out a number here, it's an intimate setting. What percentage of companies do you think have migrated some portion of their operations to the cloud? I heard 80? 96? It's actually 44. And that's just some portion of their operations. Right? That number's gone up dramatically year on year in the last 3 years. How many companies have migrated all of their operations to the cloud? I heard 1%? 5? The number is 8, around 8%, okay? There's a huge upside in that number. And again, we're seeing this number grow very quickly as well. You know, the cloud really matters. So this was an interesting stat. I was presenting to some CISOs a few weeks ago and was talking about sort of presentations to the board and the cloud and the like. And you know, what are sort of some compelling things that are happening? So 20 years ago, the average time a company would spend on the S&P 500 was 14 years. Okay? Fast forward to the last 5 years, and the moving average, and it's 7 years. Average time that a company will actually spend in the S&P 500. S&P 500 is a mixture of public and private companies based on valuation. Now, what's making the difference there? Well, there's a few things. Highlighted most dramatically here are breakthroughs in cloud computing and companies' adoption of cloud computing. Right? It allows companies to focus on what they do best. So I'm going to name a few companies here, all of whom are great companies, but I want to talk about valuation. Airbnb, as of Q2 2016, was valued higher than Marriott. Uber was valued higher than FedEx. All great companies, but the higher valued companies were actually cloud-based companies. They were born in the cloud, operate their tech in the cloud, and they're able to move more quickly as a result. They inherit the massive, massive sort of security and innovation benefits of being in the cloud, as opposed to those who have to work through a lot of different parties to get done what they need to get done on premise. And even adoption of tech. So look at some key cloud providers here. You know, it's gotten much, much more accelerated. Box was 39 months actually to reach $10 million in subscription. Fast forward to Slack in 2014. Right? And we're looking at 12-ish months, a little less than 12 months, the first 10 million. And these curves keep repeating themselves with new companies. It's pretty awesome. So in short, more and more companies are trusting the cloud, and they are seeing the benefits of the cloud. Now, I'm talking right now about sort of valuation and things like that, but I want to get into the nitty-gritty details of what differentiates Google's cloud and G Suite in protecting your data. We're particularly proud of this quote. Last year at RSA, and I think a number of folks that may be in this room went to RSA this year as well. Right? But the statement is basic, and I've got to read it because CISOs would be wise to follow Google's security operations and strategies because the company's infrastructure is years ahead of most enterprises. Particularly proud of that quote. I happen to agree, and I'm going to tell you now a little bit more about why this is the case. So why our cloud is the trusted choice. 3 messages I want folks to take home today. First is defense in depth. And I'm going to talk about the problem of the vendor in the middle, VITM, and what we did early on at Google's birth to address the challenge, the security challenges of having multiple vendors in the mix. Secondly, I'm going to talk about our security-first culture, and all things breed from that culture, our innovations, the people who protect what we do, and the technology, even the community that we engage outside of Google has its roots in our culture. And last but not least is our strong track record. I'm going to talk about how we prove that track record and engage, again, our users and retain them from the moment that they join us. So let's talk about the defense in depth and the vendor in the middle problem. When I first joined Google, I actually ran enterprise operations on site. I was an on-premise person. This was a little over 10 years ago. And I worked on technical infrastructure. And I was like, this crazy company is building its own servers. Like, wow, I mean, why are you doing that when you can just go outsource and buy in bulk and get a great deal? It wasn't too long until I realized this is genius. And we were the only company doing this at the time. And fundamentally, once we start at the bottom of that stack, our technical infrastructure, everything in that stack builds up all the way through G Suite to provide a full stack of security ownership that is unrivaled in the industry. So let's start with data centers. We design, build, operate our data centers. Right? And a lot of the stuff that's in the news, folks know, we run highly efficient data centers, highly green data centers, but we've also designed for security from day one. Right? So access to the data center floor, actual physical access to the even site. They've all been part of what we've done, and the fact that we own and operate, and Googlers own and operate these sites is fundamental to making sure that from the very start, anything that gets stored in there is going to be protected. We announced last year we started to design our own chips. Another moment where some people said you're crazy, but from a security standpoint and owning everything from the ground up, it's a very smart move. Design our own servers. Heck, we design our own racks. We design and build our own racks. Networking equipment and the like. Again, we are eliminating the vendors in the middle. If you think about on-premise, the number of vendors managed on-premise typically is a very high number. You have no way of understanding the collision between those vendors, no way of understanding and managing and even controlling when's the patch coming for this problem, when are you going to fix that? You often maybe even have a strategic outsourcing vendor managing those vendors. Right? Here, it's Google and our customer, and we are accountable for making sure that everything in that stack is secure, and we are empowered to fix it. And that empowerment to fix it differentiates us very strongly from many other providers. Furthermore, Diane mentioned this morning that we are possibly, the largest network provider in the world. Not only, and I'll get into some stats in this, so I'll do that in just a second, but that network capacity allows us to route, to prevent denial of service attacks, and to allow our customers to scale very quickly. So you have the security of knowing capacity is going to be there when you need it. We write our own application services. We write our firmware. We write the services that handle storage and job scheduling. We write our own code control system and release management systems, and I'll talk about those in a moment as well. We don't use those third-party systems because, again, it would disempower us from owning the quick and expeditious resolution of any issue that occurs. And lastly, we build our own devices. Just isn't to say you can't use your own devices. Right? We've actually been very, very open about the ecosystem. But something like a Chromebook is a clear differentiator in our solution offering. It brings the power of Chrome, it brings the power of cloud, and it brings again the fact that Google is responsible for ensuring you are secure, happy, and delighted with your experience with us. I mentioned on the server front, I just want to talk about a few things again. Servers optimized for global fleet operation. We don't put any sort of unnecessary hardware even on those, and folks can go into depth and look online at what we do there. Verified boot, again, a server will not boot unless it goes through extensive amount of tests. Hardened operating system, and again, secured applications, job scheduling and the like. All of those things go through rigorous checks before they can even run in the production environment. And even, for example, I'll tell you, with like even retirement of solutions, disk erase at scale. We're going to bring down or end of life a given server. The process by which we check, double check, triple check, a disk has been erased before we crush it. It's a pretty robust and extensive operation. We recognize that the importance of protecting our customers' privacy is paramount. 77 points of presence, 33 countries, and a robust undersea network. We were the first provider actually to engage in partnerships on undersea network cables. We've now set a trend for the industry. We're bringing the internet to the world and places of the world and connecting undersea cables where there has been no capacity previously. Again, having a key stake in those undersea cables gives us the ability to route, reroute, and bring the internet all over to any user. And for a multinational company, this is extremely important as well. So now I'm going to talk a bit about our security-first culture. There's a lot in here, and here you're going to get more of the laundry list of features that are in G Suite and beyond, and a little bit more about the people behind this. So security first. I mentioned that there are thousands of engineers in Google Cloud. And all of those individuals go through training around how to handle user data and the like. But out of those thousands, we have 700 plus dedicated security engineers that are protecting our customers' information at scale, right? Coming up with the latest and greatest innovations, understanding how adversaries are behaving, building scaled and automated processes to protect and detect and protect. We've published over 160 security research papers. Last month, for example, some folks may have read about breaking the hash, the SHA-1 hash, and that's something that we're particularly proud of. We also know that SHA-1's not used extensively, but it's not safe, right? And just by even bringing that information to the world, maybe the scale, showing what it took to break it, it's an interesting paper. I encourage folks to read it, but it's one out of many, many research papers we've published. And we engage with the academic community and funded a lot of research grants in security as well. I'll highlight, too, our vulnerability rewards program. We encourage folks to break our system. We encourage Googlers to do it, and we encourage anyone in the outside world to do so. And we motivate them with money and fame, and some of them even get jobs at Google. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful program of mutual benefit for us because if someone does find a problem, that's great because we are able to patch it and bring that benefit to our customers. And again, we've paid out several $1 million in vulnerability rewards to date and continue to keep that going. They have global site reliability experts, global incident management, protecting our sites and data, and if anything occurs, again, the turnaround in SLAs and incident management at Google are unparalleled. And I mentioned that we manage and write our own source code and release management systems. We push 45,000 changes into production every single day. Did you notice? To be able to scale that many changes takes a special system, to be able to manage over 2 billion lines of code, and to do so with low to no disruptions. I challenge any on-premise operation to meet that, and to be able to turn things around as quickly as we do. And deep data security, another thing that separates Google from the rest of the pack, is how we lay data down. First, we blow it up. Blow it up into tiny shards. Right? We take each of those chunks of data and give them a key, a chunk key. Lay it down on disk. In addition, we take each of those and we wrap them in a wrapping key. Okay? And that's hosted by our KMS. That wrapping key never leaves the KMS unencrypted. Now, after we've done that, as if that's not hard enough to really be able to figure out, okay, if I need to reassemble this, how do I go about doing that, right? We rotate those keys every 90 days as well. So both sets of keys get rotated. So you can imagine a gigantic paper shredder, each one of those shreds of paper having a key, and then there being a separate key that manages all that information as well. Very, very hard to reassemble data unless you have all of the information and it's all verified also with an additional identity layer every time someone sources information. In addition, we're the proud developers of Chrome, world's most beloved browser, and it is the only browser that can be managed entirely from the cloud. That gives admins in the enterprise space tremendous power, and it gives you tremendous insight into what's happening. It also allows for wonderful, wonderful interplay and separation of your work persona and your personal personas, and to be able to move back and forth between them. Something we do within Google. We've worked with a lot of customers to show them how that can be done, and it's just a phenomenal browser. I'm not just the only one saying that. I hear that often from our customers. Moving on to a topic that we often find since we're the providers of Gmail, the topic of spam, phishing, malware, and the like. So we get about 0.1%, right, of spam in the average Gmail inbox. It's a very, very, very low number. We're always working to make that even lower. And along false positives rates, we get 0.05% of wanted mail actually ending up in the spam folder. I know I may sound biased, but I can't think of the last time I actually had a valid message show up in my spam folder. Right. Now, how do we do this? There's a session later today on email, Gmail security. And so if folks want greater details, I encourage them to attend that session. But there are basically 3 phases in how we handle the evaluation and the machine-learned evaluation of what's come in to your mailbox. Now, 90% of all spam is caught at the sort of SMTP layer, right, pre-acceptance. But once we have it, we have a robust set of proprietary algorithms informed by decades, almost, of Gmail operations that do things like reputation scoring and entity co-concurrence and a whole bunch of other things. These algorithms are world-class. In fact, I see routinely these days startups sort of coming to sell to on-premise operators who sell one tiny piece of the logic that we've had in Gmail for many, many, many years, right? And even after we've delivered a message, we'll do deep scanning of attachments, right? Within 4 minutes, and we have this in Trusted Tester right now, that deep scanning of an attachment occurs. So we can be sure that if you're about to launch something or open it up, it's going to be okay. Right? And we also do a lot of click time evaluation. So if you decide to click a URL quickly, real time, we will check whether or not that URL is safe to launch. And there's a whole bunch of HTML sanitization and a whole bunch of other things that go on. I encourage folks, if you're running on-premise operations and you're talking to vendors about individual solutions to help you with spam and phishing and malware, there's a lot of great providers out there, but be sure it's not redundant with what we offer already. Now, we have layers of secure messaging. Beyond the sort of spam, phishing, and malware detection, we've done a lot to help with, for example, encryption. Right? Gmail now supports S-MIME, which we're particularly happy to do is under a bring your own certificates model. We just stopped blocking JavaScript attachments. And right, we launched last year, many of you may know about the red padlock, a TLS indicator to show it if at any point along the way your email was sent unencrypted. That tiny padlock in the course of 3 weeks changed the state of encryption on the internet, right? And there's this great examples of the way that Google innovates in a non-invasive, helpful, friendly, googly manner. It comes back to our culture, right? And just says, listen, I'm going to give you the information, and you can act on it accordingly. And it's funny how the self-organizing world of the internet said, hey, now that everyone can see that I'm not encrypting, perhaps I should. We also launched DLP with a whole lot of prepackaged features. For example, credit card numbers, license plate numbers, by country, right? Algorithms based on by country things that allow you to sort of get up and running really quickly with prepackaged rules as well as custom rules, regular expressions and the like. Common images even are scanned and analyzed for DLP. Now, we offer DLP in Gmail and Drive, and the rules and adoptions have been great. We also are looking into providing even more information to customers about the adoption of DLP, what DLP is finding and not, and stay tuned for more information in that space. You can now export Gmail logs to BigQuery. This is a long requested feature from our customers. Basically, we had the logs. Our customers requested them. It allows them to do a lot more analysis on their own, retain them for whatever period they wish. We're obliged by our own regulatory obligations, the like, to keep data for certain amounts of time. In this particular case, customers can tweak that or reflect their own rules and regulations and export the information if they wish as well to other tools for analytics like Data Studio, Tableau, et cetera. OAuth. So, I've talked a lot about a lot of these, sort of first-party, what I call first-party features. See if I missed any that maybe folks might want to know a little bit more about. I mean, there's OU-based sharing settings, Drive IRM, all of those things I'm happy to discuss in greater depth if folks want. But in addition, we now have available in Trusted Tester the ability to limit your OAuth scopes and whitelist apps. This is another feature that not only have our customers requested, but we drink our own Kool-Aid at Google. We use all of our applications, and in fact, Google.com is one of the biggest customers, right? So we have requested this as well, and it's a really important feature, one that we're proud to bring to Trusted Tester, and I encourage you to talk to your account manager if it's something that you're interested in. Or come to the product manager, meet the product manager session, third floor of Moscone, I think from 4 to 6. Everyone's invited to come talk to product managers. Mobile device management. So MDM. This is something that folks have been asking for as well for quite some time. It's evolved tremendously in the last few years. And the ability to go mobile is fundamental to any operation anymore. And if you're managing on-premise, mobile devices, tablets, home device, bring your own device, all of that, it becomes complicated quickly. Yet we all know that employee happiness is rooted in the ability to sort of, hey, I'd like to use my own phone, I'm an iPhone user, I'm an Android user. People don't like to be forced into certain technologies. MDM actually helps you manage a wide variety of devices and ensure that your company's policies are enforced no matter what device they bring. Again, something we use at Google, and we allow our employees to use various devices provided that the policies are enforced on the device. So also it brings third-party app management, more insight into your identity and use, and the ability to remote wipe, right? I lost my phone. Oh no, right? Now, what are you going to do, right, when you lose your phone, especially if it has a lot of sensitive corporate information? Yeah, the phone may be encrypted and but did somebody actually have access to your password, your passcode, or any of those things on that device? At times, unfortunately, you do have to wipe that device remotely. The ability to do that easily with our solution is, again, something that differentiates our solution from the rest of the pack. Talking about devices, new sign-in from Chrome on Mac here, right? So a MacBook, you get a notification if for the first time you're logging into a new device. But not limited to just Chrome on Mac. Let's say it happened, you can get that notification on your mobile, and vice versa, you can also get new mobile notifications, right? Your account spans all of these devices, We do the work to let people know what devices are being used and what's happening to your identity in the cloud. And you can go into more detail and understand, okay, was this me? And if not, I'm going to give you the chance to secure your account. Log yourself out of everywhere, reset your password, and get moving from there. Okay. Very simple, very, very easy. It's what we're dedicated to at Google. We're dedicated to taking the complexity out of the things that make on-premise operations so hard. So with that, I want to talk about one of the innovations that broadly separates Google from the rest of the pack. And I'd like to invite Reena Nadkarni up to the stage. Reena is a great colleague, senior product manager, who's going to take us through a demo of security keys.
Hi everyone, I'm Reena Nadkarni, product manager on the G Suite team. Today I'm going to tell you about security keys, both from the end user side as well as from the admin side. Let's start. If you can switch to my laptop, please. Yeah. So let's start with a very simple guest browser, and we're going to look to see what the experience looks like if you need to register for a new security key. So I'm just going to go to logging in with my test account user. It's asking me for a password. And what you're seeing here is that the admin has required this domain to have a security key. And we'll talk a little bit about the admin features that we're providing shortly. But here it's asking me, hey, do you want to register a security key? Let's say I'm going to say yes. And obviously, for security purposes, it needs my password again. And so now it's saying, do you have your security key with you? And I have my security key, which was given to me by my admin. At Google, we have them at our tech stop. We say you should literally have these, in a candy bowl in every break room. So I say, yes, I have my security key with me. I click next, and it's telling me to just plug it in. And then when the security key blinks, I just have to tap on it. And there, this security key is registered. This has associated my account, my Gmail account, with this security key one-on-one. And when I click done here, it tells me that a security key was registered. It talks about when it was registered. And if I now go back to my mail, it's also going to notify me saying, hey, two-step verification was turned on for your account. So if you look at what this does, this goes back to the fundamental product principles we have at Google. We want security to just work for you. We want it to not get in the way, because once it gets in the way, people don't use it. So that was kind of the end user side of things and how easy it is to use security keys. On the admin side, we've added 4 new features for security keys: enforce, enroll, recover, and report. So if you think about enforce, this is what you saw, the notification when I first came in here saying, hey, you need to register a security key. This is because through the admin console, the admin said you have up to a week. It's a configurable threshold of time. And so that is enforce. Enroll is that self-enrolling process that we just went through. And then you have recover. So many times users sometimes may lose their security key, or it gets lost or stolen. Now admins can do this at scale, where they can just revoke that security key and the user can register a new one. And finally, to be able to monitor the usage of security keys and make sure that they're sending out appropriate communications to their entire domain, you can report on the usage of these security keys using our admin console. So in short, security keys are great. They're simple, they're easy to use, and they protect you from phishing. At Google, we use them every day, and I encourage you to come to some of our more detailed sessions tomorrow, where we'll be giving away some of these security keys as well. With that, I'm going to call Suzanne back on stage to continue the conversation on trust. Thank you.
Reena, very much. Now I mentioned that security keys strongly differentiate us. Google, along with the FIDO Alliance and GitHub, all got together to develop this security key. What makes this different than traditional second factor auth or like say one-time tokens and the like is that no code is actually passed, right? So there's no man-in-the-middle opportunity for this. So someone gets your corporate credentials. They can't get the corporate credentials and then figure out what the checksums, whether for an OTP or something like that were. They actually need the security key and your corporate credentials to be able to hack into your account. We have had exceptional results at Google with Googlers using security keys. If I were to tell our customers one thing and one thing only that they needed to do to improve their security, it is to adopt security keys writ large within your company. Again, this is something now that we're very proud of. Other companies have come on board, Facebook, Salesforce, and others have recognized that this is a very, very strong security technology. Okay. And I do encourage folks to come get one tomorrow. Okay, so we've talked about sort of two of the domains, right? We've talked about how our security-first culture influences features, it influences community engagement, it influences how we operate day in, day out. We talked about vendor in the middle elimination by building our own stack and defense in depth. And I want to finish up with our strong track record. Google was born in the cloud. From day one, we have optimized for security and privacy in the cloud. Have we done everything perfectly for everything from the very start? No, we haven't. But we have made mistakes and learned from them extremely quickly. And it has made us super strong today. And we do this at scale. And we have lots of outside independent parties verify that what we do is what we say we do. And we're proud to have the badging of, for example, ISO 27017 and 18, among the first to get these badges. We're FedRAMP certified for G Suite. Really important, really onerous, and really, really, this is one of our proudest moments to achieve that certification. Something that if you can hit the FedRAMP obligations, you can pretty much hit everything. And the reporting obligations to make sure that we're consistently compliant are strict. And I'm proud to see some of our FedRAMP folks in the room and grateful to everything that they've done, and grateful for everything they've done. And of course, we share our SOC reports, SOC 2, SOC 3, we do our SOC 1. External auditors maintain all of this. We work with our customers to share the results that we can share. And the fact that, for example, your data is not used, your enterprise data is never used for advertising purposes. I want to repeat that. Enterprise data is not used for advertising purposes at Google. It would violate the covenants of our agreements with our customers. It would violate our culture. It would violate everything that we've committed to customers. But we get audited against that to ensure folks know that as well. In addition, we have data protection compliance ingredients that we commit to our customers. Right, our terms of service outline how we treat your data. We, in addition, have a data processing amendment that shows specifically what we do with your data once we have it, what our obligations are if you delete it, how long we can take until it's completely gone. And last but not least, we're very proud, and I see Mark here in the room, of achieving common opinion MCC approval in the EU. Right? What does that mean? That basically means anyone in the EU who wants to use G Suite has the approval of their DPA in that country. You don't have to go through extra hoops or one-off one, and that's for most EU countries. It's a big, big, big differentiator for us as well. So, talked about, I think, a lot of the things that some folks maybe know, maybe didn't know some of, maybe didn't know all of. But there's a lot of his hidden wisdom in the cloud, and specifically in Google's cloud. The fact that we were born in the cloud and that we have a huge user base across consumer all the way through to enterprise, right? We have a lot of people watching our service. Look at an on-premise operation, and you have your company. You might have the good citizens who are out there saying, hey, I see a bug, or I'm logging in and I'm seeing something wrong. What happens when that's tens, hundreds of millions plus individuals using that service? You get near instantaneous information in a solution like that about security and privacy vulnerabilities. It's a huge advantage of using the cloud. In addition, I often say that security comes in multiple forms with the cloud. There's the obvious sort of cybersecurity side of things, and having the best experts protecting this information, and that is the reason that they show up for work every single day. But then there's also sort of technical obsolescence or stagnation. Right? Security is commercial security as well. And if your company is actually constantly getting bogged down and can't innovate quickly enough because they're waiting for the next patch of X, or the servers to arrive, or the vendor to actually get the right people in place to get the job done, that is going to slow your company down at a rate that no company in this environment can afford. Right? So security comes in more than one form in the cloud. And it's certainly one of those forms is commercial agility, the ability to innovate, and the ability to take advantage of each and every other customer's needs. We get information input from multiple sources all over the world, all over different verticals, all over different customers. Right? Those all get baked into a common code base, and they get launched across the world, and they get launched quickly. And that's another key reason that the cloud is a wise choice. No on-premise operation benefits from that kind of scale of input and that kind of scale of monitoring. So in closing, and we're going to have some time for questions here, I just want to quickly summarize again the 3 points I'd like everyone to walk home with. Right? On-premise operations tend not to build their own servers, build their own data centers, build their own application services, have their own networks. And that's probably fine for someone small, except that until it's not. And there's a vulnerability or a patch needed by one of n number of vendors. It's actually put your company at risk. With Google, the buck stops here. We are accountable for the full stack, and we have to fix it. Because chances are it's not just one customer who's impacted. It's many. Right. Second, security first culture. It's not just our security engineers, it is every engineer, every product manager in the cloud that is responsible for your data security. And everyone goes through training. Everyone understands that if we don't do that, everything else is not even necessary because we got the security wrong. And we have strong community engagement. And then last but not least, look at our track record. We've been protecting the world's sensitive information, whether under the banner of enterprise or not, for well over a decade now. I'm proud to be a part of Google. I'm proud to have the trust of the customers in this room. We all hope to have the trust of our prospects as well. I'm deeply humbled by the opportunity to be a Googler and to serve the world in this capacity and to work around so many great people who treat your data with the utmost respect. And with that, I'd like to say thank you and invite the room for questions.